How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder. Today, we're going to be recapping some of the games from week one around the NFL. It was a very exciting week one. Very happy that football is back. And this is why the NFL, when you compare it to the other major sports leagues, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL, they cannot compete with the NFL. The NFL is just undefeated. It is so great that it's back, and those other leagues cannot compete with them. But the games I wanted to talk about, and we'll go through some of the other games throughout the week. Very busy weekend again, especially with football being back, and three separate days. You know, the Cowboys and the Eagles got things started off in week one. Then you had a great game on Friday between the Chiefs and the Chargers. The Chargers winning that game. Full slate on Sunday, and then of course we have the game tonight between the Bears and the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy making his debut for the Vikings, and we will also see how Caleb Williams looks with Ben Johnson, the former offensive coordinator for the Lions, now the head coach of the Bears. And after what we saw yesterday, Lions kind of missed Ben Johnson with how they played. So I want to get into which was the best game of the day, and it was the final game of the day, and that was the Sunday night game between the Ravens and the Bills. Now, again, we had some good games down the stretch, especially in the early window. Actually, also, we had some good games in the late window as well. Some late heroics from Brock Purdy to lead the 49ers to a win, and also Nick Bosa as well at the end. But you had some great finishes to start the day on Sunday. But I wanted to talk about the game from last night between the Bills and the Ravens. This was a rematch from the divisional game from last year in Buffalo. The Ravens losing that game. You know, the Mark Andrews drop on the two-point conversion that would have tied the game. Lamar Jackson had a couple of turnovers in the first half. That game. This was an unbelievable game. Unbelievable game that the Ravens should have won. Should have won. They dominated this game. They were the better team pretty much the entire time until the final 10 minutes where the Bills they pulled it off. But they did benefit from Ravens' mistakes and also a little bit of luck as well. So, I mean, the Ravens just were running the ball up and down the field. Derrick Henry, once again, every time this guy goes up against the Bills, he just has a monster game. Last year against the Bills in Baltimore, he had almost 200 yards rushing. Last night, not exactly the same stat line, but still, he ran the ball for 169 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. And he made me regret who he will be playing tonight, so I'll see how he does. He made me regret passing on him at the 107 in my fantasy draft because not only did he go off last night against the Bills, he went off against me in my matchup in fantasy. But Derrick Henry, once again, goes off against the Bills, 169 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. And the Ravens ran the ball for over 200 yards in this game. He had on the 70 yards by Lamar Jackson. He had a rushing touchdown in this game. They had 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 by Derrick Henry and 1 by Lamar Jackson. They ran the ball for 238 yards on this Bills defense. And the Bills made a lot of changes. Now, to their defense, there's a couple of guys that are suspended that they're going to be getting back that are going to help in the running game. But yeah, I mean, they added Joey Bosa. They added some other guys. Ogunjobi they added, who's one of the guys that is suspended. They got to get those guys back because that run defense, once again, was a sieve. And they just could not stop this Ravens offense. Now, the Bills, they got things started off pretty quickly. They go right down the field on their first drive. Josh Allen hits Dolan Kincaid for a touchdown, so that gets things started there. And then the Ravens, they respond. They go down the field. And their rookie kicker, Tyler Loop, he kicks a field goal to put them on the board, a 52-yarder, so not easy. So that got the Ravens on the board there. And then, you know, they got another touchdown. Well, they got their first touchdown of the game. That was Derrick Henry's first rushing touchdown from 30 yards out to give them the 10-7 lead. And then they scored another touchdown to make it 17-7. Lamar Jackson, his rushing touchdown. Bills kicked a field goal. Ravens got another field goal right before the end of the first half. And this is where it was the beginning of the end for the Ravens. And we didn't realize this. And this kind of got forgotten about because of all the craziness that happened in the fourth quarter. But the Bills have the ball right before the end of the first half. And they run a play. Ravens are not rushing anybody after Allen. He's sitting back there. and he finds Kincaid along the sidelines. Now, initially, I thought this is the end of the first half. All right, that's it. Bills aren't getting anything out of this now. But they reviewed it, and the Ravens are going into the tunnel for halftime. And now they're calling the Ravens back saying, no, it's not over yet. So they determined after they reviewed the play that there was 1 second left on the clock. So they give the Bills an extra second. That allows them to kick a field goal right before the end of the first half with Matt Prater, who they brought Matt Prater in because Tyler Bass, their kicker, was out. He was placed on IR. And we'll talk about Matt Prater a little bit later. But that was a huge play in this game. Huge play. And again, I thought that was the end of the first half. And I rewatched the play several times. I guess there was like, it's like in the NBA. It was like a tenth of a second left or something. But, I mean, the clock hit 0. But they reviewed it, and they said, yep, 1 second left on the clock. So Prater kicks a field goal. Bills get points out of that, so it's 20-13. But then the Ravens come right out in the second half. They go right down the field, and Lamar Jackson finds Zay Flowers for a 23-yard touchdown. Zay Flowers, he also had a very good game last night. 7 receptions for 143 yards and a touchdown. Very good game out of Zay Flowers. So that made it 27-13. But then the Bills respond. They go right down the field themselves. And James Cook from 2 yards out, who had a good game last night, he scores. They go for 2. They do get it with Keon Coleman. But he was out of bounds and got charged with an illegal touching because you can't do that. So that ends up not counting. So it stays at 27-19. Both teams exchanged punts. And this is where I thought, the game was really over. I mean, there were two instances where I thought the game was over. Ravens go down the field, 36-yard reception by Zay Flowers, and then Lamar Jackson throws a pass down the sideline to DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins makes a one-handed grab in the end zone for a touchdown. Listen, D-Hop, he's not the same guy that could take over a game, but he could still make plays. And you saw that when he got traded to the Chiefs last year. He could still be that red zone threat. And once again, he proved that last night with that great catch. And Lamar Jackson and D-Hop got into it with a Bills fan in the stands as they were celebrating after this touchdown. But yeah, so that put the Ravens up 34-19 towards the end of the third quarter. But then the Bills respond. They go down the field. 51-yard pass play to James Cook. It looked like he was going to take it all the way to the house, but he got tackled short of the goal line. And then Josh Allen, of course, punches it in. And then Josh Allen tries to hit Dolan Kincaid on the two-point conversion. It gets intercepted. So it's 34-25. But then the Ravens, again, score a touchdown. The Bills, every time it looked like they had momentum, the Ravens would shut it down. Derrick Henry, 46-yard touchdown. So that made it 40-25. So at that point, I thought, okay, Ravens should be good. They should be good. The Bills are not going to come back from this. And we've seen the Bills get into these shootouts before last year. Remember the game against the Rams? I mean, they were down most of that game, but Josh Allen had like 6 total touchdowns in that game. Also the game against the Lions as well. That was really high scoring. But yeah, I thought at that point the game was over. But that was not the case. They ended up getting another touchdown, which was a pretty lucky play because it was to Dolan Kincaid from 10 yards out. It was 4th and 2, and the ball got deflected like several times, and Keon Coleman caught it off the rebound. So, so the Bills get points out of that. Matt Prater makes the extra point, so that made it 40-32 at that point. And then, yeah, this is where it really this was really the beginning of the end because for the Ravens. So the Bills get the touchdown, and then on the next drive, Derrick Henry fumbles. We could talk about how well Derrick Henry ran the football all night, but here, costly mistake. Fumbles the football. Bills turn that into 6 points as well. Josh Allen scores a 1-yard touchdown. It was set up by a 29-yard pass play to one of the backup tight ends. That made it 40-38. And then this is where the Ravens got some heat because they get the ball back. They punted on 4th and 3 from their own 38. A lot of people are saying the Ravens should have went for it. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. Because now all the momentum is on the Bills' side. And if you remember, this goes back to 2021, okay, against the Chiefs. All right? I think this was Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbles. I think this is what happened. Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbles, the Ravens get the football, right? Lamar Jackson goes to John Harbaugh and says, John Harbaugh says to Lamar, you want to go for it? Lamar says, let's go for it. And they were in their own territory. It was on 4th down. And they went for it. And they got the first down and they won the game. And that was the first time Lamar Jackson ever beat Patrick Mahomes. All the momentum is on Josh Allen's side and the Bills' side. It's 4th and 3. You run that same exact play with Lamar. And most of the time you're going to get it. And they probably would have got it. I mean, we don't know. Maybe the Bills would have stuffed them. But you put the ball in your best player's hands. Because that defense was not stopping anything. It wasn't. I mean, Josh Allen in that offense was... They were cooking at that point. All the momentum was on their side. And they didn't go for it. They punted it. And what happened? Jair Alexander got burnt in this game. And they didn't tackle... Like, Jair Alexander tried to tackle Keon Coleman. And he ended up tripping him up. But it didn't matter. You know, and then the Ravens had to burn all their timeouts. And Matt Prater comes in, kicks the 32-yard field goal, and the Bills win 41-40. Also, I think the Ravens missed an extra point. Yeah, they missed the PAT. That was another thing too. That was costly. So you had the missed PAT, you had the field goal right before the end of the first half, you had the Derrick Henry fumble. You also had the Keon Coleman touchdown that got deflected a million times on 4th down that he ended up catching in the end zone. There's a lot of things you could point to as to why the Ravens lost. Now, I know some people are going to say, here we go. Once again, Lamar Jackson can't get it done at the very end of the game. Lamar Jackson in this offense put up 40 points. Okay, there was a lot of craziness that happened that he's not responsible for. Is he responsible for the Ravens' defense, for what they did at the end of the first half to allow the Bills to get 3 points? Is it his fault that Derrick Henry fumbled? Is it his fault that his rookie kicker missed an extra point? Is it his fault that his defense couldn't get a stop? Did you want him to play defense when Keon Coleman caught that touchdown? That game is not on Lamar Jackson. Now, you could say, look, the Ravens, they had an opportunity to ice the game. You know, right before the touchdown drive, Bills got to 38. Actually, no, that was the Derrick Henry. But the punt. You know, after the Bills scored to make it 38. Yeah, that's what, yeah, I was on the right track with that. After the Bills got to 38 points, you had an opportunity to ice that game, and you went 3 and out. But you should have went for it on 4th down. You should have went for it. Because Josh Allen right now, we could say Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. We could do that. But Josh Allen is the reigning MVP. All right, you got the reigning MVP on that side. He is having a great 4th quarter. He's having a great game in general. You gotta put the ball in the hands of your best players. Put the ball in the hands of the 2-time MVP, and not on the defense. Which the defense was on the field for a long time, especially with the Bills score and then Henry fumbles. You know, like it was a disaster of a 4th quarter. The Bills outscored the Ravens 22-6 in the 4th quarter. And again, the Ravens looked like the better team the entire game. And, you know, I talked up the moves that they made in the secondary. You know, it's that defense. I mean, you could say, again, the defense did not play well towards the end of the game, but you could also say the defense was out there for so long. They were tired. And you're playing against Josh Allen. But, yeah, that was an unbelievable game. And just credit to Josh Allen. And, you know, they were asking Josh Allen, look, you had all these fans leaving. You know, and he was talking about that. Fans were leaving because the game was over. Game was not over. Game's never over when you got Josh Allen as your quarterback. And like I said, he finished the game, 2 rushing touchdowns, 33 of 46, 394 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Lamar Jackson, 14 of 19, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had 70 yards on the ground in the touchdown. Both of these quarterbacks have very good games. But if your takeaway from this game is you're gonna put the blame on Lamar Jackson, you're wrong. It's not on Lamar Jackson that they lost this game. There's a lot of other things you could point to before you get to Lamar Jackson as to why the Ravens lost this game. And then, of course, Matt Prater, kicking the game-winning field goal. Josh Allen was pumped up, telling him, welcome to Buffalo. That was big. Listen, Matt Prater he's been around for a long time. I think he's 41 now. He's been around for a long time. He had the, single season longest field goal in NFL history prior to Justin Tucker knocking him off when he kicked that field goal against the Lions a few years ago. But, how about that for Matt Prater? But what a game. What a game to end off what was a very exciting week 1. But my takeaways from this game, look, you could say the Ravens still can't win the big one. Look, it's one game. It's one game, and not only was it an exciting week 1, we also saw a lot of sloppy football yesterday across the league. Teams got to get acclimated. All right, you're going to start seeing better football as we, get a little bit further into the season. You get to the end of the first quarter of the season. That's when teams start to gel, start to figure it out. But yeah, that was an unbelievable game. The Ravens had that game, but again, there is just several mistakes on the Ravens' part, and just the Bills had a little bit of luck on their side too. Keon Coleman, again, I go back to the Keon Coleman touchdown. Like that, So, yeah. But actually, speaking of Keon Coleman had himself a game. The Bills are very high on him going into this season, and he balled out. He had some big catches yesterday, had 11 targets, 8 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. He balled out. This is in year 2, and they paid Khalil Shakir. Dolan Kincaid had a good game and had the touchdown. James Cook, of course, got paid this offseason. If this is the Keon Coleman that they're going to get this season, what a weapon to add to this offense. And he's still incredibly young, right? Yeah, he's only 22 years old. Yeah, so there is a lot of room to grow. But what a game for him last night as well. But yeah, this was great. And it's a lot of fun when these two teams get together. Really is. But yeah, Ravens fall to 0-1 on the season now. For both teams, the Bills will be taking on the Jets, which we're going to talk about that game. Have to. And so the Bills will be taking on the Jets next week. And as for the Ravens, they will be taking on the Cleveland Browns, who lost yesterday to the Bengals. The Bengals won week 1, everybody. They did. They did it. Wasn't pretty. Many people could say they should have lost if the Browns kicker could make a field goal and an extra point. I think he also missed. But the Bengals were able to get the win. So they get off to a fast start, if you want to call it that. But, so I do want to highlight, because these were the two games. Now, this game I watched, of course, the Sunday night game. Also, I was locked into both New York teams yesterday because, obviously, that's where the fandom lies. And, because there were things that I was really looking forward to with these two games. So do we start off with the good or the bad? Now, you could say they were both bad because both teams ended up losing, but they both lost in different ways. So I guess we'll start, we'll start off with the good, even though, again, it ended bad for the Jets. Jets-Steelers yesterday. So this was Aaron Glenn now making his debut as the new head coach. New era of Jet football. Justin Fields leading the charge at quarterback. I got to tell you, I was very surprised by what I saw out of this Jets offense yesterday. Now, again, we saw a lot of sloppy football yesterday, and it's just one game. But the Jets offense that I saw yesterday was very competent. Very competent. Justin Fields played, I mean, that had to be the best game I've seen him play as a pro. He played really well. And Breece Hall, that's the best I've seen him look in a long time. You know, because obviously, you know, he tore his knee up his rookie season. You know, and he's in the last couple of years, like, he's had good games, but you know, he hasn't been the player I think a lot of people expected him to be. But he looked really good yesterday. And Garrett Wilson played really well. Now that he has his Ohio State quarterback throwing him the football. I mean, that touchdown that Justin Fields threw to Garrett Wilson, right in the right side of the end zone, that was one of the best passes I've ever seen him throw. That was a great play. I mean, Darius Slay, I think Darius Slay was on him. Darius Slay got burnt on that play. But that was a great throw by Fields. And also the athleticism with Fields. Being able to scramble around. You know, he had a couple of rushing touchdowns. He had to score from, you know, near the goal line. And then also on the 4th and goal towards the end of the game, you know, that was a great play. Completely fooled the defense of the Steelers, and he was able to score. You know, and Fields kept making plays. You know, the Jets offense and they made it a point of emphasis to run the football, and they were running it exceptionally well yesterday against the Steelers. I mean, they were running lanes all over the place. Now, when we talk about the Giants, it's the complete opposite, but this Jets offensive line did a very good job. And, you know, I know that the Steelers defense, when they had to make a stop or they had to make a play, they made it. But I thought this offensive line did a very good job at protecting Justin Fields. You know, and they panned a couple times to, you know, when Olu Fashanu was on TJ Watt. And Fashanu was doing a very good job at keeping TJ Watt, you know, containing him at least. You know, TJ Watt, of course, made his plays at times. But Fashanu, he won his battles too. So, and look, that was not the flashy pick when the Jets made it at the time. But you know what? Be a heck of a player on that line. So, and the Jets also drafted another tackle, you know, but that offensive line, and especially when you have Vera Tucker being out for the season, because that guy always gets hurt. He's hurt every single year. But that offensive line did a very good job against a good pass rush. And again, Steelers pass rush, when they had to make plays, they did. But I thought the Jets, you know, the offensive line did well. So there was a lot of encouraging things from this game with this Jets team that you could take away. And the defense, look, they did get after Rodgers. They put pressure on him. And they got to him. I mean, the very first play the Steelers ran from scrimmage, Rodgers got sacked. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is going to be a long day, isn't it? But the secondary was not good. The secondaries were not good for both teams. I mean, both defense, again, the offenses were going up and down the field. I mean, if it wasn't for the game last night, this would have been the best. I mean, this would have arguably have been the best game of the slate. I mean, there's a couple of other contenders, but this game, I think, prior to the Sunday night game, this was the best game of the day. Because you had both quarterbacks going up against their former teams, even though they were only with them for 1 year. And they both played really well. But yeah, the Jets secondary was not good yesterday. And then the special teams. Nick Folk, I think he missed an extra point. And then also on special teams, you had Xavier Gibson fumbling the football on the kickoff or on the punt. And that was a difference maker because the Steelers went and cashed it in right away. You know, so and that's how small the margin of error was. You know, because both teams were playing clean. There were no turnovers. Other than that, on special teams, both quarterbacks did a good job at not turning the ball over. Although Rodgers definitely should have been picked a couple times. There was one where the defensive back of the Jets was laying on the ground and the ball hit him right there. and he dropped it. He couldn't make the play on it. So Rodgers was definitely close to turning the ball over himself, but didn't. There were things to like from what the Jets did yesterday, but unfortunately, it's just if you're a Jet fan, I saw it on social media, and you know what? I can't fight them on this. It doesn't matter if it's a moral victory or not, how well they played. They put up 30 points in this game. It doesn't matter. They still lost the game. They still lost the game. And part of it was Chris Boswell's a very good kicker. He kicks a 60-yard field goal to win the game. And then, and this is a thing you could criticize Fields on. 4th and 3, last play of the game, it turns out to be. After Boswell kicks the field goal, the Jets are driving. And it's 4th and 3, Fields takes the snap, and you thought that he was going to take off and run with it. But instead, he ends up throwing to Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson makes the catch, but Jalen Ramsey knocks into him, jars the ball free, ends up being incomplete. Steelers get the win. That's a tough way to end the game. Fields should have took off and run with it. Does he get it? I mean, there were Steelers there, but Fields is pretty quick enough. He probably could have picked it up. And the Jets still had a timeout left. But they ended up coming up short in this game. There was missed opportunities as well. The Steelers got penalized on a PAT by the Jets, and then the Jets went for 2, and they ended up not getting it. Also, I think it was on the Fields touchdown run on 4th and goal where he faked out the defense, and then, they threw it to Garrett Wilson in triple coverage. But yeah, there's definitely, like, for both teams, there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up. A lot. But, I mean, look, the Jets, they ran the ball for almost 200 yards in this game. Braylon Allen had a rushing touchdown in this game. Breece Hall had over 100 yards rushing, and he also was their second leading receiver behind Garrett Wilson. They need another receiver, man. I mean, you look at who caught balls yesterday. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. I mean, obviously Garrett Wilson, is going to be the leading receiver. Then remember Tyler Johnson from the Buccaneers? He was, if you take Breece out, he was their second leading receiver. Mason Taylor only had 1 catch for 20 yards, the tight end they drafted. Josh Reynolds had 2 receptions for 18 yards. And Jeremy Rutger, 2 for 16. Like, they need more receivers. And they still have Alan Lazard, but I think he was a scratch. He didn't even play in this game. Jets defense had 4 sacks in this game. Look, they got after Rodgers. They got after him. But that secondary, that was a problem. That was a problem. And like I said, the Jets, they'll be taking on the Bills next week. But I know, again, you don't want to take it as a moral victory. If you're a Jet fan, you wanted the Jets to win this game, and the Jets should have won this game yesterday. I mean, Steelers got bailed out by a 60-yard field goal by Chris Boswell. And then Jalen Ramsey makes a great play at the end of the game. Jets played well enough to win that game, but it didn't happen. All right, now let's go to the other side of this game, though. The Pittsburgh Steelers. So like I said, there's a lot to clean up with this game. But we got to see Aaron Rodgers make his debut yesterday. And it's, week 1's not over yet. We'll see what J.J. McCarthy and Caleb Williams do tonight. But after week 1, after his week 1 performance, leads the league in touchdown passes, leads the league in passer rating. And I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes, shake their head, and click off the video now. But I'm just saying. It's one game, though. It's one game. But, look, the Steelers' offensive line, they need to play a lot better. Because, look, it's only one game. It's a long season. Rodgers can't be taking so many hits. Can't. Because, one bad hit, and he's done. He's done. But I thought Rodgers was in a rhythm in this game. On the first drive, I mean, right away, he hits Freiermuth for a first down, and then, later in the drive, he hits Ben Skoranek for the touchdown. Later in the game, he had the back shoulder to Calvin Austin. Calvin Austin was making plays for them yesterday. I mean, we talked about the concerns. There was a lot of talk about who's the Steelers' number 2 wide receiver. It might be Calvin Austin. I mean, he had 4 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown, and he made plays for the Steelers last year too. Let's not forget. Not only as a receiver, but also on special teams too. DK Metcalf, 4 catches in this game. We saw Jonnu Smith. He caught a touchdown, the little tap pass for a touchdown. Jalen Warren had a touchdown in this game. I mean, he was wide open. Skoranek was wide open. Again, the Jets secondary did not play well. There was a lot of guys running wide open. And then, he hit Calvin Austin at the end for the touchdown. Rodgers played well. He played well. And look, it's one game. Jets have a lot to clean up in the secondary. So, it's great to see that Rodgers played well. But we got a long way to go in this season. And we'll see what the Steelers are made of next week. They take on the Seahawks at home. Seahawks have a good defense. They're coming off of a loss against the Niners. You got the Patriots the following week, who did not look good in their Week 1 game against the Raiders. And then you got the Vikings Week 4. And I think that game's in London. So, and that Vikings defense got after Rodgers last year. So, and the Steelers got a pretty early bye week, Week 5. So, we'll see what they're made of, but they got a lot to clean up, though. I mean, the run defense was horrendous. I mean, you added Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay, and Jalen Ramsey made plays yesterday. Darius Slay again got burnt on the Garrett Wilson touchdown, but there is a lot that needs to be cleaned up with this defense. And T.J. Watt made plays, like I said. Alex Highsmith, he made plays as well when he had to, getting after Fields. But there is a lot. There's a lot that needs to be cleaned up with that defense. So, Rodgers had a good game. He got his revenge against the Jets, and, they asked him at the end of the game, how to feel, and, talking about Aaron Glenn and how, Aaron Glenn had Rodgers fly cross country to meet with him just to tell him he doesn't want him to come back as quarterback. They're going to go in a different direction. He said he was happy to beat everybody affiliated with the Jets. Because Aaron Glenn showed him the door. So, but I was going to have a different opinion had Justin Fields not played well. Justin Fields played really well yesterday. So, I can't really say, well, I mean, again, it's only one game. But both quarterbacks played really well against their former teams. So, but again, it's a long season, so we'll see who ends up being right. Like, was Aaron Glenn right for letting Rodgers go, or was Rodgers right saying you should have maybe reconsidered? But this was a great game. This was a great game, very exciting. Steelers start off 1-0. They're tied with the Bengals for first place in the AFC North. After one game, yes, I know I'm saying that. Like I said, they are playing Seattle next week, which is a very good defense, and they, Leonard Williams last time Aaron Rodgers played Seattle, Leonard Williams had a pick 6 off of him. So, but this game will be in Pittsburgh. It's their home opener, and then for the Jets, they're taking on the Bills. Which, curious to see how that game goes, because the Bills' defense was not good yesterday, and the Jets can run the football like that against the Bills. I mean, that could be another high-scoring game right there. Bills Jets. And actually, if the Bills lost, I think the Jets, because technically, if the Bills lost, every team in the AFC East would have lost, and I think the Jets technically would have had first place. But of course, the Bills pulled off that miraculous comeback, and that didn't happen. So there was definitely a lot to like from this game, but also a lot that, again, I'm going to say it for like the 7th time, there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up. Now, I guess the final game we'll talk about for today, and I'll bring up some other games as well, but Giants Commanders. We'll go to the other New York team. Like, at least with the Jets, like, hey, that was an exciting game, really fun to watch. Fields played well. The Giants Commanders game, there was nothing to take away from that game and say, yeah, this team's going to be competitive. This team's going to be competent. And again, this is the same Giants team. that scored 30-plus points in all of their preseason games. And that's why, everybody, you can't get too excited. Reality hit me. Reality hit a lot of Giant fans. You can't get too excited with the preseason. You can't. You got to take everything with a grain of salt. Now, I kind of did. But I also just think, the defense is going to be good. I think the quarterback play is going to be better. I mean, the Giants' defense technically kept them in the game. But you could also say the Commanders should have scored more points. This should have been more of a blowout than it really was. And it was 14-6, really. And then, the Commanders scored a touchdown late. Deebo Samuel scores on a little end-around play for a touchdown. How about him? He looked pretty good in the Commanders' uniform yesterday. Terry McLaurin and Jane Daniels, they missed on a big play there. That Terry McLaurin would have walked into the end zone for a touchdown, so they missed that earlier. But, the defense kept him in the game, but it should have been a blowout. They got to Jane Daniels. They sacked him a few times. Brian Burns, I think, had a couple of sacks. Abdul Carter, he blocked the punt. Didn't really give the Giants good field position because it still ended up, going back to, the Giants 30, I think it was. But this offense, I had to clean my glasses yesterday that I was wearing because I'm like, is that are we seeing Daniel Jones playing quarterback right now for this team? Actually, I say that Daniel Jones. You see what he did yesterday with the Colts? Oh my! They scored a touchdown on every. They scored on every possession. Every possession. Colts didn't punt. And Daniel Jones was the quarterback. Yeah, I mean, this Giants offense, oh, man. They couldn't do anything. Anything. Now, once again, the offensive line was horrendous. It was terrible. I don't care what quarterback was back there. That Commanders front was pressuring Russell Wilson all day long. All day long. And it's just dump offs. There was nothing. A couple times he tried to throw it deep. Nothing. And they couldn't do any. The Jets running the football exceptionally well. Giants could not do anything. There were no holes opening up. Nothing. Tyrone Tracy couldn't do anything. Cam Scatterbo finished with -3 yards. He had a very, social media was posting it, the block that he had on somebody, and Russ was able to complete a pass to Neighbors. That was his only highlight. It was a block. Brian Dable's getting hyped over the Giants kicking a 50-yard field goal. He's getting excited over there. Malik Neighbors and Dable were getting into it on the sidelines. Neighbors was visibly upset with how the offense looked. They couldn't do anything, and it was the first field goal drive, I think, when they finally scored. So they get down towards the red zone, right? They get down towards the red zone, and then all of a sudden they get gifted a penalty, right? Unnecessary roughness penalty on Marshawn Lattimore. Actually, no, there was another penalty. There was illegal use of hands on 4th and goal. That's what it was. That's what it was. And Russ actually scrambled, tried to pick up, the touchdown, tried to score, but he ended up fumbling the ball, but he recovered it at the 2. They went for it. Then there was illegal use of hands on Wise, defensive lineman for the Commanders, used to be, Patriot. So they're at the 1-yard line. They run a play with Membo, who they drafted, right? The offensive lineman. They reported him as eligible. Russ is throwing him in the back of the end zone. 2nd and goal, Scatterbo can't score. Another incompletion, and then they just kicked the field goal at the 2. But on one of those plays, you had Darius Slayton wide open in the flat, and Russ didn't see him. And then they finally kick another field goal later to make it 14-6. And then, like I said, the Commanders, got the touchdown towards the end. Giants were in the red zone at the end of the game, at the 3. Had 4 chances, couldn't score. They got down there. They just couldn't. They couldn't punch it in, and that was the same problem last year. They get down in the red zone, Can't cash in. Can't cash in at all. More of the same from this team. That's why you just cannot get excited. You can't get excited with what this team does. Like, oh, they draft Abdul Carter. Oh, they got their quarterback. Oh, they bring in Russell Wilson now instead of they shipped Daniel Jones out. Now they got Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jaxson Dart. Look at this quarterback room. Oh man, Abdul Carter on defense with Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns. They got Malik Neighbors. They draft Cam Scatterbo. Look at this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The results are always the same with this team. Always the same. Always the same. Now, I was confident because last year, the Giants, had they had a kicker, they would have beat Washington. And guess what? They didn't make the same mistake they made last year. Graham Gano was not out there on the kickoff. Wasn't out there. They had the punter out there. So that was good. So Graham Gano had no chance of getting hurt on the kickoff. But the Giants could have won that game last year. They didn't. And then they lost another close game later in the season. So I thought maybe with this defense, and you would have thought Russell Wilson would have played a better game, that they had a chance. They had no chance of winning this game. No chance. None. It's the same thing every single year. And I think Chris McMonagle on WFAN made a great point. You went into this season now. You had Russell Wilson at QB1. You had Jaxson Dart at QB2. Jameis Winston is the QB3. You're not going to put in Jameis. You're going to put in Dart. And I think that was a mistake. Because I think you make Jameis Winston QB2 and have Dart 3. I think Jameis Winston, then if Russ is not doing anything, throw Jameis in. Throw Jameis in. But because now you made Dart the QB2, well, now he's the backup. He's the backup. So now he's next in line to come in. And honestly, it's good that Jaxson Dart didn't go into that game because of how bad the offensive line was. I would honestly, like, if it wasn't Russ, if I knew that's what we were going to get out of Russ, was that, I would have rather had, if we had a veteran quarterback playing, not Dart. If we had a veteran quarterback, I would have rather seen Jameis Winston out there playing instead of Russell Wilson. I'm just saying, with the veteran quarterbacks on the team, would have rather have seen Jameis Winston go out there and throw for 280 and 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions than and that probably wouldn't have happened. Again, the way the offensive line was. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised there wasn't a QB change at the half. Not really, but you know, it's a bit of an exaggeration. But that's just how bad Russell Wilson was yesterday. Like, with the Steelers last year, like, again, he's not the same player. I get it. But what we saw yesterday, like, with Pittsburgh last year, like, he at least, like, proved that he can win you games. But then he, of course, went 0-4 towards the end of the year. 0-5, including the playoff game. I mean, he looked like a guy that just, he can't play football at all. Can't play it at all. But again, that's what happens when you come to the Giants. Part of it is just, the Giants, anything they touch, I mean, they ruin. And they made Russell Wilson look like a guy that should just hang it up. That's how bad it was. They could not do anything. And again, that's why I'm happy that Jaxson Dart didn't play, because I would not want him behind this offensive line. But at least with Dart, you could say, well, he can move around in the pocket. Russ can't really do that anymore. That's the only thing. But we'll see. I mean, and they're already committing to Russ for next week. I'm sorry. I said, look, in a perfect world, you have Russ play the whole year. Giants play good enough where they're competing for at least a playoff spot. And then you go to Dart next year. But that's not happening, man. Jaxson Dart is going to start within the first 8 weeks of the season. Maybe even less. that is just how bad Russell Wilson played yesterday. That is how bad that offense looked. And at this point, it's like, what are we doing? What are the Giants doing? Like, you drafted this kid, you want to see what he has, throw him out there then. Throw him out there then. Let him learn on the fly. Let him deal with what they don't have at offensive line, because they have not been able to build this offensive line for years. Years! And they've addressed it so many times. But it doesn't matter what they do. The offensive line every year is always a problem. It's always a problem. Like Daniel Jones, now he goes to the Colts. The Colts actually have some good offensive linemen. They actually have decent weapons. They have a good running game. Now, also, the Dolphins are not good. The Dolphins are not good. And we saw that plenty yesterday with how Tua played the 2 interceptions, their defense. But, yeah, of course Daniel Jones would go out and do that. The Giants, they have not been able to build an offensive line for years. That's part of it. And they haven't been able to find their quarterback. And maybe Jaxson Dart is the answer. I hope he is the answer. But let me tell you something. Daniel Jones goes out there and has a good year with the Colts. That's another player the Giants ruined. That's a quarterback they ruined. And you know what? Who's to say they won't ruin Jaxson Dart? Now, Jaxson Dart went to a school that's known for football. With Daniel Jones, he went to Duke. Like, Duke is known for basketball. It's not known for football. All right? I know there was a connection, there with the... But, because with Eli and Peyton, working with the coach at Duke and Jones, obviously. But, no. Jaxson Dart has played a lot of football. Okay. All right. He comes from a football school. All right. It's going to be different. But I have my concerns with the individuals that run this team. That's what makes me fearful for this young quarterback. Because this regime has gone completely backwards. The worst thing that could have happened for them was them winning a playoff game. Because, if they didn't win that playoff game, who knows what would have happened? They wouldn't have paid Daniel Jones. And they would have moved off of him a lot sooner. Or maybe they would have been gone a lot sooner because... Because then it's like, well, at least they won a playoff game. Well, they haven't done anything since then. They've gone backwards. They had their worst season in franchise history last year. The year before that, they won 6 games. Who knows what's going to happen this year? They might win 0. The way their schedule is. Yeah, it's bad. It is really bad. At this point, again, Russell Wilson was so bad yesterday. I mean... Just put the kid in. Just put him in. Just put him in. That is how fast I flipped on this whole thing. Because I already see it next week. They play Dallas. Like, Brian Dable already named Russell Wilson the starter. I already see Dak is going to be throwing to CD. Pickens is going to have a big game. Jacob Ferguson is going to catch passes over the middle. They're going to run the football up and down. And I don't care that Dallas lost Micah Parsons. That defense is going to get after Russell Wilson. He's going to get sacked all over the place. And they're going to lose, the Cowboys are going to put up 40 points against them. You just know it. And it's Dallas's home opener. Dallas is going to dominate next week. And then after that, you got the Chiefs on Sunday night, and then you got the Chargers. It's a gauntlet. And this team, and the other thing too is, I felt confident, right? I said, you know what? I think the Giants are going to win this game. But as we're getting closer and closer to Sunday, I'm seeing content creators, I'm seeing analysts, I'm seeing people, in the media saying, yeah, the Giants are going to be better than people expected. You know what? They're going to beat Washington on Sunday. This 6.5 point spread, don't count the Giants out. And then I started to say, I kind of like when the Giants are flying under the radar and nobody's giving them a chance. And I kind of like that. And I felt like this prior to, me seeing these takes. But once we got to yesterday, I was like, we'll see what happens. And everybody that picked the Giants, everybody that thought the Giants were going to upset Washington, you look foolish, and including this guy. And also coupled with the fact that I thought Russell Wilson would go out there and play a decent game. He did not. It's over. It's over. I've seen enough. That game I've seen enough. There is nothing redeeming from that game where I could say, you know what, Russ deserves another game. Nothing. Like, had the Giants lost a competitive game, you lose 24-21, something like that. All right, Russ has, passes for a little over 200, has a couple of TDs. All right, yeah, we'll give Russ another game. But gave you nothing. There was nothing from that game where I could say Russ deserves to play next week. He does not. But I guess, Brian Daboll, he owes it to Russ. Look, Russ is the starter. Okay. Well, you're going to see more of what you saw yesterday against Dallas. You're going to be playing from behind against Dallas. Good luck guarding CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Good luck. Because it's going to be a long game for you. It's going to be a long game. Again, that's how fast I completely flipped. Because you know what? I should have known better. A lot of people should have known better. This team just doesn't have it. Doesn't have it. And let's see what. Hopefully Jaxson Dart is the answer. But you could look at the Giants and say they could definitely ruin this guy too. They could definitely ruin this guy. If I'm Jaxson Dart, I'm requesting a trade. No. Yeah. That worries me. What worries me is they are going to ruin him. They are going to ruin him. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. But that was not the right start for the Giants that they needed, that this regime needed. Because if this continues, the calls for them to lose their jobs are going to get louder and louder and louder. And they're already loud after just one game. And John Mara, too. They are all going to hear it from the fans. They are all going to hear it. It's long year, man. Long year is coming for Big Blue. It's not going to be a good year. Not good. I mean, we already knew that. I thought they'd be competitive, it's still only one game. But if they're going to play like that every single week, I'd be very surprised if they win, more than 3 or 4 games again. It was horrible. So, yeah, complete opposite of what the Jets showed on offense. And they were getting there. I mean, again, the pass rush for the Giants, did get after Jane Daniels, but also, I mean, the defense too. I forgot to mention this. This soft zone coverage that they're running, they're letting giving these guys so much cushion on the Commanders. And again, drops were a problem for the Commanders yesterday. If they weren't dropping certain passes, if Terry McLaurin and Jane Daniels hit on that long pass, I mean, this game is more than just 21-6. But the defense, what is this coverage that they're running? These guys are open. I mean, they're just letting them get everything underneath. Because they don't want to give up the big plays, I guess. But it's just, I mean, the Commanders are like, all right, we'll take it. Jane Daniels scrambling all over the place. We'll take it. Not good. Not good. And give the Commanders credit too. I mean, like I said, the offensive line was horrendous for the Giants, but Commanders made moves to improve that defensive line, and that defensive line was getting pressure. So, Commanders win 21-6. Not what you wanted if you were a Giant fan. And we'll kind of do a quick little whip around of the other games as well around the league. We had a dramatic finish in Atlanta between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield connecting with Emeka Egbuka, first-round draft choice out of Ohio State for the go-ahead touchdown. Falcons actually got into field goal range, and the Bucs actually they get the touchdown, they miss the extra point. Falcons get into field goal range. Younghoe Koo misses the field goal at the end of the game to tie it, and the Bucs end up getting the win. Michael Penix played pretty well yesterday. Passed for over almost 300 yards, had a touchdown in this game. Bijan Robinson had a huge receiving touchdown early on in the game. Actually, the Falcons really could not run they really couldn't run the football in this game. Bijan only had 24 yards on the ground, but like I said, had that huge receiving touchdown. Kyle Pitts had 7 receptions for 59 yards. Drake London got hurt in this game, so we got to keep an eye on his status. The offensive line was a bit of an issue for the Bucs because they're missing Tristan Wirfs. Got to get him back. Baker Mayfield, I mean, the numbers, he did throw 3 touchdowns, but he went 17 to 32 for 167 yards. Bucs really couldn't run the football well yesterday, but Egbuka ended up being their leading receiver with 2 touchdowns. Bucky Irving had a receiving touchdown in this game. Mike Evans only had 5 for 51 in this game. 1 sack of Michael Penix. But yeah, listen, Bucs get off to a really good start because last year, remember, they got swept by the Falcons. So, but yeah, the Falcons and Michael Penix, let's see what they do the rest of the way. But, good start for Penix, just, on the losing end, unfortunately. I brought up Daniel Jones. I mean, the Colts didn't punt yesterday. He finished with 272 yards, 22 of 29, 1 touchdown, no picks. Had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. The Colts ran the ball for 156 yards and 2 tutties. I can't believe I said 2 tutties. 2 touchdowns. Michael Pittman had 6 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. Tua Tagovailoa, not a good game. Had a fumble in this game, had 2 interceptions. They put in Zach Wilson to finish this game. That's how poor the Dolphins were yesterday, and Tyreek Hill was not happy on the sidelines. What a disaster of a start for the Dolphins. Jaguars get off to a good start, 26-10 over the Panthers. Bryce Young didn't look very good. Travis Etienne had a very good game, had over 140 yards on the ground. Travis Hunter played, I think, only 6 snaps on defense, but he had 6 receptions for 33 yards. Brian Thomas Jr. had a rushing touchdown in this game. Little end-around play. This game got delayed for a bit, but yeah, it finished up. Jaguars won 26-10. The Bengals got the win over the Browns. Again, the Browns could have won this game if not for a missed extra point and a missed field goal by their young kicker. And they parted ways with Dustin Hopkins. They give this young guy a chance, and he did not get the job done. I can't even. What's his name? Schmidt. Anyways, yeah, 1 for 2 in field goals, 1 for 2 in extra points. That was the difference in the game. Flacco threw a pick at the end, had a couple of picks, and one of them it went off the hands of a receiver. So yeah, that was costly. Joe Burrow, very, very pedestrian performance by him, if you even want to call it that. 14 to 23, 113 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, first game off of their new contracts. T. Higgins was their leading receiver, 33 yards. Chase only had 26. Noah Fant had a receiving touchdown. Chase Brown had a touchdown. But yeah, look, Bengals got the win. That's the important thing for them. Cardinals won 20 to 13. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a good game. A couple of touchdowns by Kyler Murray. Saints are not very good. They're not going to win a lot of games. Rough game for Bo Nix. They got the win 20 to 12, but Bo Nix did not look good yesterday. 2 picks. I think did he also have a fumble in this game? Yeah, he had a fumble in this game. He had 3 turnovers in this game. Cam Ward actually didn't look that bad. Him and Calvin Ridley, couldn't really. Ridley had some drops in this game. This was a tough spot for Cam Ward. They had a chance. They had a chance, but Broncos have a very good defense. And it doesn't get any easier for Cam Ward because him and the Titans are going to be going up against the Rams next week. So, 49ers got the win 17-13. George Kittle left the game early with the hamstring. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks for Purdy. McCaffrey had a lot of touches in this game. Ricky Pearsall was their leading receiver. Joey Bosa Purdy had the play of the game on offense at the end. Bosa had the play of the game on defense at the end. Purdy had that touchdown to the backup tight end. That was Jake Tongs. He had the go-ahead touchdown, which I don't know how that didn't get intercepted. The 2 picks Purdy had were not good. and then Nick Bosa gets the sack fumble recovery of Sam Darnold to win the game. And it looked like Seattle was going to win it at the end because that was set up by a huge play by Jackson Smith and Jigba. But yeah, Darnold in his debut with the Seahawks, only 150 yards passing. Zach Charbonnet hit a rushing touchdown in this game. So yeah, I mean, look, 49ers defense, with Bosa healthy, still a good unit, But yeah, they were able to get the win. But George Kittle probably going to be out. Juwan Jennings and Kittle are getting MRIs. Jennings, I think, on his shoulder, Kittle on his hamstring, so they could be out for multiple games. 49ers are really shorthanded at the receiver spot. And then Packers all over the Lions, man. I mean, the Lions really miss Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. I mean, oh, man. Jared Goff did not look good yesterday. They couldn't really run the football. Jordan Love looked healthy. 2 touchdowns in this game. Josh Jacobs ran the ball effectively. Packers defense really got after Jared Goff. They finished with 4 sacks. Micah Parsons played a limited amount of snaps, but he was making plays for himself. He finished with the sack. Rashawn Gary had a sack and a half. Packers looked really good. That defense looked really good. That was a statement win for them. Remember, they went 1-5 against this division last year, and already they're 1-0. So already off to a better start than last year. So 27-13 they win against the Lions. They didn't have a touchdown until the fourth quarter, and that was to the rookie Tesla, who made a one-handed catch, very impressive catch at the end. So Packers get the win there. They get off to a good start, and then the Rams win a very low-scoring game against the Texans, 14-9. Both defenses played pretty well, forcing some turnovers. The Rams had 3 sacks of C.J. Stroud, and then for the Texans, they had 3 sacks of Matthew Stafford. Stafford made some plays. Yeah, C.J. Stroud did not have a good game. 188 yards passing, no touchdowns, and a pick. Nick Chubb was the leading rusher. Yeah, Texans got issues on that offensive line. I mean, their defense is good, but that offense is still dealing with the problems they had last year, especially when you're going up against this defensive front for the Rams, who are my Super Bowl pick. So they get off to a good start. Puka Nacua got banged up in this game, but he was able to come back, and he finished, I think, with 130 yards in this game. 130 yards. Devontae Adams had 4 for 51. Kyron Williams had a touchdown. Rams 1-0 on the season. They take on the Titans next week. For the Texans, they take on the Buccaneers. That's a doubleheader next Thursday, or next Monday night, I should say. And I actually did forget to mention, because this game was on Friday, we didn't get to talk about it, Chiefs-Chargers. This was a very good game. And this was a game that, the Chargers usually lose. But not this time. Xavier Worthy gets hurt on the very first, one of the very first or second play of the game. He gets clotheslined by Travis Kelce, shoulder injury. He's going to be out multiple weeks, I think. The Chiefs really couldn't run the football in this game. Hollywood Brown had a good game. Juju Smith-Schuster made plays. Kelce scored a touchdown on a broken coverage play. But Chargers come away with the win. Keenan Allen back with the Chargers. He looked like the Keenan Allen of old. Quentin Johnston had a couple of touchdowns in this game. But the big story, everybody, from Chiefs-Chargers is Justin Herbert. When Justin Herbert had to make a play, he made it. And not only with his arm, with his legs. On that 3rd and 14 to ice the game, that was a signature play by Herbert. Because, look, people, there's people that praise Herbert. There's people that tear down Herbert. He's definitely one of the more polarizing QBs in that regard, because there's like a split, because he's so talented, but he hasn't won anything, and he always falls against the Chiefs, just like a lot of other teams. But that play right there, that was a huge play to ice the game. Chargers get the win. Look, they got the coach and the quarterback, and they're going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. I think so, especially in year 2 of this system now, and now having Keenan Allen back, that just makes this team a lot better, and you figure Maurion Hampton's going to be able to run the football better as the year goes on, as he gets more acclimated to the speed of the NFL, and Najee Harris obviously dealt with the eye issue this offseason, but you figure you're going to get more production out of him too, as that being a tandem there. And the offensive line did a good job too, protecting Herbert despite Rashawn Slater being out. But yeah, that was a signature win for Justin Herbert and the Chargers. And as for the Chiefs, man, look, Patrick Mahomes made some great plays, and still, put together a decent outing. But look, the Chiefs to me, they just don't have a lot of dynamic players on offense, man. They just don't. And they're still going to be good. They're still going to be good, but it's not going to be easy for them this year. It's not, and it's not going to get any easier next week because we got the Super Bowl rematch next week. For the Chiefs, at least it's at home against the Eagles, but they could be 0-2 by the end of next week, and that's not Chiefs-like, to say the least. But for the Chargers, that was a great win for them, and they take on the Raiders next week, who won their game against the Patriots, which I actually didn't go over that game. Yeah, Raiders won 20-13. Geno Smith had a turnover in this game, but he played pretty well. Threw for over 350 yards, 362 yards. He finished with a touchdown to Trey Tucker. Brock Bowers at over 100 yards receiving. Aston Genty in his debut only had 38 yards on the ground, but he did have a touchdown. The Raiders defense got to Drake May 4 times, forced a couple of turnovers. Drake May was not very good. Did finish with almost 300 yards passing. Patriots really didn't run the football effectively. Kashawn Boutte had a good game, over 100 yards receiving. Patriots defense did get to Geno Smith 4 times, but they come up short. They are 0-1. So yeah, Chargers will be taking on the Raiders next week, and then as for the Patriots, they're taking on the Dolphins. So that's going to be an interesting game. See how that goes. But that's week 1, everybody. That's week 1. So there's definitely overreactions. Some not so overreactions, but look, it's only 1 week. Still a lot to learn. So hope you guys enjoyed that recap. It took a little over an hour. But make sure, everybody, to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, just look us up, Infinite Sports, and you can listen to us as well. If you don't want to watch, you can listen. And as always, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Forgot to mention J.J. McCarthy against Caleb Williams. I think the Vikings win a close one tonight. So we'll see what happens. So I'm really curious to see how that goes, and we'll talk about that game tomorrow if we get to it. But as always, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.